Who knows? Perhaps I'm too spoiled by the PC at this point, or console gaming has just become exponentially more expensive. $70 releases, online subscriptions, fully priced remasters of nearly 15-year-old games. One way or another, these console manufacturing cocksuckers find a way to make their money back, and it comes at the expense of the consumer. Well, Frit, gaming is an inherently expensive hobby. Quit trying to seem witty by putting up prices. I want to pay $60 for a 20-year-old game. There's no price on my enjoyment. So they usually say until it comes time to criticize PC gamers for the money they spent on a rig. Yet by the time the generation is almost over, they've already spent well over twice as much as the PC rig. Either way, the discussion isn't a console versus PC one. In fact, I think whether you reside as mainly a PC or console user, banding together is in everyone's best interest if we don't want to see the $100 price tag for games soon. Truth is, the industry has been drilling people's assholes with a 15-inch dildo for a while now. Hey, some enjoy the pegging and are more than happy to abide by corporations, but those people most likely have their room filled with Nintendo plushies, pop vinyl figures, and soy bottles. They don't count, and their voice is irrelevant because they will buy anything at any price, and nothing will persuade them otherwise. But we're at a point now where, oh god, games like Pikmin 3 make their way to the Switch at a full price of $60, nearly 8 years later. Better yet, how about Sony thinking Ratchet & Clank warrants a full $70 at launch, even though the game will be $40 in 6 months from now? Am I a cheap asshole? You're goddamn right I am. But that comes through years of consumer experience and understanding how messed up prices are. Right, so instead of smoking a fat bowl of weed or doing the occasional mushroom trip, I found myself sitting through a painful hour of Nintendo's event thingy that the cringiest fandom tunes into for news on basically nothing. If you haven't sat through one of these events before, my god, my first immediate advice is to turn off the live chat, as it's a bunch of middle-aged men getting flustered and throwing tantrums over not seeing a new game of the same ancient IPs Nintendo has been living off of for years. No amount of testosterone will get you through that soy-infested chat. They'll be angry Nintendo doesn't show gameplay of reused Breath of the Wild assets, but won't bat an eye at $60 10-year-old ports. A truly strange community, as Hunter S. Thompson once said.
One of God's own prototypes. A high-powered mutant of some kind never even considered for mass production. Too weird to live, and too rare to die.
Wow, Fred, do you really have to dig into them that hard? Is it necessary to insult them that much? Yes. So, since I have a Switch now, light model, I have a bit of a vested interest in seeing what Switch games I will be buying used in the future. Suck this popsicle stick, Nintendo, you ain't getting my money. This event essentially showed me nothing. An event that could have been 30 minutes long, hell, maybe even 10, was chock full of filler. Game updates, yay, Animal Crossing gets Mario items. Thanks for eating up time about letting us know about that, but we still have no Gyroid update. Remasters of old games. Yeah, Nintendo, I like 1943 a lot. Used to make out with girls in front of the arcade cabinet at a ghetto laundromat. But is that shit really worth taking up space on this event? Announcements for games we already knew were coming? What, am I supposed to be blown away at Monster Hunter? No, we all knew that was coming for a long time. A lot of these indie games look good. We can all agree Nintendo puts up great indie games, and a few of these might get picked up. But aside from that, the biggest announcements are The Last of Us 2 for the Switch.
Please stop! Please don't do this! Joel, please get up!
Fire Emblem Default, No More Heroes 3 getting a release date, and Skyward Sword, quote-unquote, remastered. Oh yeah, and Splatoon 3. I mean, perhaps in a Nintendo fan's mind, this is the best thing since sliced bread, but it's nearly impossible to try and say this was good. I'm an overly negative person by nature, so I think it was trash and it sucked absolute ass, but plenty of people out there say it's just meh. Honestly, saying meh is a little too nice. Because let's face it, if this was a PlayStation event, we would be trashing on this, let's not kid ourselves. Next, we have to talk about the insane pricing, because that's what I opened up this video with. I don't think I would have even done this video if that pricing didn't catch my attention, because pricing is Nintendo's biggest problem right now. And like Apple users, you know, aside from me that buys everything used, Nintendo fans have just accepted it and lubed up their anus because the sales show that no matter how much you speak up against it, it's always going to sell well. even if the same people buying the shit bought it 3 times over the course of different generations. Every company is guilty of relying on nostalgia, but when it comes to Nintendo, they're basically the Disney of video games. Some might take offense to that, but if you think I give a shit, you clicked on the wrong video. Skyward Sword is one of those games most of us want to forget. Nintendo, however, feels it's the appropriate game to sell back to you with minimal changes for, Charlie, how much was that game again? Amazing. $60 now when it was $50 about 10 years ago on the Wii. Nintendo out here forgetting what they charged originally, just like when a hentai forgets the dick size it had drawn a few frames ago. Nice. So 10 years later, one of the worst Zelda games gets to be played on a little screen on the go for $60. What a privilege. I wish I could tell you why the game is more expensive now than it was before, but I already see the Nintendrones giving their half-assed reasons.
It's Zelda on the go. It now supports regular controls. It's finally 60 FPS. It's sort of HD.
The typical things that we expect from remasters. However, the way Nintendo is pricing this, you'd figure it was built from the ground up as a full remake, but no. No, silly kids. No mechanic here has changed. No new dungeons, no new quests, no new items. Same experience, higher price. Why? Well, because Nintendo is just so good, so amazing that they warrant the price even though legit full remakes like Shadow of the Colossus was $40. And beforehand, Nintendo opened up the announcement, letting people know they have no news or updates on Breath of the Wild 2, and followed it up with this announcement instead, which is quite honestly almost an insult. Then again, Nintendo can jizz all over the face of their consumers when they ask for something, and they'll still say thank you. I saw plenty of simps eagerly waiting on standby to pre-order it, so I have no sympathy for them. I'm a selfish asswipe. I only shit on these prices because Nintendo makes it hard to want to stick around. Let's look at the remake, shall we? Yeah, look at that. This can all be achieved on an emulator, mind you, for free, with gyro aiming support and regular button mapping. But I guess Nintendo put in so much work that hasn't been done elsewhere. There's your $60 value, guys. Well, just get it while it's hot because it's Nintendo. Never know if they suddenly decide to stop selling it for no reason. How big of an insult is this to the consumers when other bundles out there exist? You can get all 3 Uncharted games for $60. You can get the entire Master Chief collection for $40. Hell, you can even get the overpriced Super Mario 3D All-Stars for $60. But you can't give the consumer Twilight Princess, Wind Waker, and Skyward Sword for $60? Skyward Sword alone is $60? As a matter of fact, why don't we have Pikmin 1, 2, and 3 for $60? I'll tell you why, because Nintendo sucks. People out here want to call Sony and Microsoft greedy, which they are. They want to call Nvidia and AMD greedy, which they are, but they refuse to call Nintendo greedy. They want to turn a blind eye to Nintendo because they're so enamored with the nostalgic experiences they had. Well, guess what? I don't hold that kind of sentiment. I don't care. These video games won't go with me to the grave. If I bought a game for full price 10 years ago, why the hell is it more expensive 10 years later? And they aren't only doing this with Skyward Sword, mind you. They also want to resell you Miitopia, a 3DS game that was what, $40? And the only thing they gave you now is you can ride horses or change hair or something? They want to sell that to you for $50 on the Switch. So a 3DS game is now more expensive 8 to 7 years later? What the fuck is this? Why is this okay? Why do we just shrug and say, well, it's Nintendo, they'll always charge more expensive? Okay, you know what? Be my guest. Buy all of it. Enjoy all of it. But if people were as nitpicky with their video games as they are with paying for car repairments, then I think the industry would be a lot different. People would be a lot more mindful of where they're putting their money. But instead, here we are, accepting the anti-consumer bullshit, making gaming a lot more expensive than it needs to be, and we pretend like we're happy with it. You know what, I'm an overly negative popsicle stick. I'll continue to shit on fandoms, and corporations, and peasants. You can unsub if you want, but not enough people out there are actually wanting to call out corporations on this bullshit. Most of them want to sit there and tell you, oh, I had a lovely sunrise experience in Animal Crossing. It was such an amazing, gorgeous moment that really amplified the atmosphere of this game. You know what? I've said what I've needed to say. It's done. I'm not going to repeat myself. Fuck off, Nintendo. And as always, I'll be enjoying all of your products used. That way you don't get a dime from me. See, because unlike the 90% of your consumer base, I'm not the type to have 4 copies of the same exact fucking game for 4 different platforms. The PC really do got me spoiled.